Certainly once, I think maybe twice. Certainly once was postponed because, yeah. בסדר. כל הטובה, כל עקבה לטובה. I'm very pleased that I didn't make a snap decision at the time when my father passed away where to immediately bring him here. Then I wouldn't have had a chance to think it through, where to bury him, etc. The decision would not have been the right one, or the optimal one, shall we say. It may have been right, but it would not have been optimal. This way I had the time to look into it, think about it, make the preparations. It's 10 minutes away.
Did you say something about you at the funeral? You said a bracha, correct?
Bracha that you say when you go to a Beth Kavarot.
That bracha is said whenever there's a funeral?
Most people don't know the bracha, so they don't say it. But it actually usually is a sign. In most Batei Kavarot there is a sign. Most people don't actually connect with it, to know what they're supposed to do. But any person, nothing to do with the funeral necessarily. Any time you see Jewish graves, if you saw them yesterday, no, that's once in 30 days. But if you haven't seen them recently, every time you see graves or next to a cemetery or you walk by or whatever, you make the bracha.
You didn't say it immediately at the beginning. You said it at a certain point. Was there a reason for the time?
It doesn't really matter when you say it. We spent whatever time we spend there today in the Beth Kvarot. I thought it was made sense to say it at the end before the final Kaddish. Keddushat Hashem. Better. Turn. That's what I thought made the most sense. I looked up the Nusach. The Nusach I said there, which if you have it recorded, that Nusach is the first time I've used that Nusach. I looked it up last night. That I think that's probably the most authentic Nusach. Based on the Yerushalmi and the Tosefta and the Bavli. It's a shilul of all three, really. The Ikar of the Bracha, as Rabbi Shaul Lieberman Zetzal points out in the Tosefta Kivshuta, the Ikar of the Bracha is what appears in the Tosefta and the Yerushalmi, which is V'yodea mispar kol lechem. Sh'Hashem yodea yodea kol met b'fnei atzmo. That's the Ikar of the Bracha. And most people, if they say it, they usually say "V'yodea mispar kulachem badin," which means doesn't make a lot of sense. Badin, to say badin, asher asar etchem badin makes sense. Asher achia etchem badin, asher hamit etchem badin, that makes sense. Asher yodea mispar kulachem badin, yodea mispar kulachem. That's how it appears, also without the word badin. And also there's a nusach that appears in the Tosefta and Yerushalmi, ונאמן בדברו לחיות מתים. ונאמן בדברו, that's the intention, לחיות מתים. Anyway, so I worked that nusach out, that's in my head last night.
Also, maybe you wanted to mention something. It's a very strange feeling. I thought it's a bit strange. On the one hand, there's sadness, tremendous, substantial sadness at a funeral, like any funeral. But I never had the fact that the body was transferred to Eretz Yisrael, that once he was buried, there was a feeling in my heart that thank God he was going to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. The word happiness doesn't seem appropriate, but a certain feeling of satisfaction that he was buried in Eretz Yisrael.
You're right, that's that. היטבת לבטא את העניין. It's true, it's correct. It's a feeling of closure and having done the right thing and completed the task. So there's a lot of preparation and a lot of bureaucracy, what have you. That too. But Baruch Hashem, and I'm very happy that Avi Mori is buried here here in Gush Etzion. I think it's
so close to your home.
It's nearby, and it sounds a bit strange to say, but it's a beautiful place. In other words, it's a very well-kept, orderly, mechubad bet kvarot.
Any other thoughts you want to? Okay.
No, not this moment.
Well, you say your father's heart was in Eretz Yisrael, and he's in Eretz Yisrael.
My father lived in Eretz Yisrael for approximately, altogether, all told, about 3 years. 2 years from about, I think, Tafshin Tet to Tafshin Yod, he was here. He worked in Haifa as a meturgaman, as a translator for many Olim Hadashim who were coming, who couldn't speak. They spoke different languages, and he knew many languages. My father spoke 7 languages. And he was a meturgaman at the port in Haifa for many new Olim that were arriving. He wanted to stay, but for reasons that we won't go into now, that didn't happen. And he lived here again for about a year and a half. Tafshin Lamed Aleph, 1970-71, when he was completing his limudim to receive smicha, which he received in Tafshin Lamed Aleph. In the summer of Tafshin Lamed, he received smicha from Rav Rashi, Rav Yehuda Isser Unterman, who was the Rav Rashi before Rav Goren. And Rav Goren, who my father knew from his time here, went on a world trip so shortly after he became Rav Rashi. This is in 1972. Either the end of 71 or sometime during 72. I know it was before Milchemet Yom Kippurim, because I remember he came to Auckland and he ate in our home, Rav Goren, and he spoke, and there was a big kiddush for Nichvodo after davening on Shabbat, and he spoke. And I recall that he said, he encouraged the Jews in New Zealand to come on Aliyah, and he said, I promise you there won't be a war for 10 years, at least for 10 years. This was about a year before Milchemet Yom Kippurim. But I remember this very well. But it's interesting that he chose to try. These Jews are so far from the concept of Aliyah, but nevertheless, he pushed the idea of Aliyah. He did. Of course, there were some younger people who came on Aliyah eventually because of the influence of Bnei Akiva. That's the truth. It's one of the best examples of the positive influence of Bnei Akiva, particularly in Chutz La'aretz, maybe even more than here. And here also it's different. It's a different kind of influence, but it had a great influence on some people. There were certain young Jews who, without Bnei Akiva, would have remained in New Zealand. They probably would have married out and you wouldn't have heard of them again. Some of them moved to Melbourne, to Australia, which is a strong Jewish community, as opposed to Auckland, which is nothing. And some moved here.
Sitting Shiva just for a few hours of that day, is that a minhag mentioned in the Talmud? Is it post-Talmudic or is it?
No, it's mefurash in the Talmud. It's mefurash in Masechet Semachot, and it's brought in all the Rishonim, Rambam, Utul. It's all no machloket bichlal. It's when a person is melaket atzmot aviv or imo. Then on that day he sits Shiva to the end of the day. No?
And nobody suggests doing anything more than that beyond that?
No. In fact, it's mefurash not to. It's mefurash not to do more than that.
I guess naturally speaking, the emotions come back, and then you almost feel stays with you. It's for a bit of time. It doesn't just come and go so quickly.
The chokhmah of the halakha is to know how to achieve exactly the right balance. And that's the right balance.
The production of these videos and maintaining this channel demands much time and money. If you enjoyed this video, please show your appreciation and support. To make a donation, please go to www.machonshilo.org and press the PayPal button which appears on the upper right-hand side of the home page. To sponsor a video or purchase Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael, please write us at office@machonshilo.org.